Okay, hi everybody. This is the Blender exercise to accompany lecture number 3, class number 3. And in class number 3, we're looking at the Library of Babel short story by Jorge Borges. And I'm using that as sort of an excuse to teach you some more techniques in procedural modeling. The story by Borges focuses particularly on the mathematical and expressive possibilities of the infinite combination of letters in language. And this is sort of the underlying principle of procedurality in 3D modeling as well, that with a few simple rules we can make incredibly complex forms. So I'm going to run through how I made this for you today. And as with most of my video tutorials, I'll try to keep it reasonably simple so that I'll leave it up to you to add in a lot more of the artistry and small details that you want. I'll probably make a second video just for the rendering. I'll show you how to render out an image in a second video. This video will just cover how to get the basic modeling functions here working. Okay, so let's go over into Blender, and I've got a new file here. First of all, I'll just delete the startup cube, and I'm going to add in a mesh circle. Now when you add in a new shape, in the bottom left hand corner there are some attributes that you can change. And I just want to change the vertexes to 6. So if there's 6 vertexes, it's no longer a circle, it's just become a hexagon, which is exactly what we want as our basic shape. So I'll press Tab to go into edit mode, and 2 to go into face select, and I will just press F to fill the gap between those faces. The next thing I want to do is press extrude, E, S for scale, and 0.8 and enter. And then I'm going to go into face select by pressing number 3, click on the middle, X to delete that face, click on the middle again, X to delete the underlying larger face. So we're left behind with this hexagonal ring. And what we're going to do is just use a few quick modifiers to make a lattice shape, a repetition of this hexagonal ring, and then we'll delete some of those faces to create the shape that will then repeat over and over to make our library. Okay, so I will go out of edit mode, just go into the modifiers panel, add an array, and I'll just pop that up to 4. And now I'll add a second array, but this time I can't simply just add one here and have everything work out. You can see that now we've got the vertexes joining. Actually what we want is we want this to be shifted along and for it to sort of drop down. Now the exact numbers here to make things a bit quicker will be 0.125, and this should be 0.75. And if we click on the Z in the gimbal here, and then I'll just hit Z and click on wireframe, we can see that things are perfectly overlapping. Now these numbers here, I just worked them out before the tutorial, but you can also just play around with it until things are perfectly lined up. Okay, so I'll pop this count up to 4 as well. And one thing I'm going to do before I apply these modifiers, I just want to change the geometry a tiny bit. I'll press 2 to go into edge select, and I'm just going to fill in this face, F to fill, left click, shift left click, and F to fill again. And because we're still using arrays, that's done that to all of the shapes there. Now I'm going to apply both of these modifiers, and I'm going to go back into edit mode. I'll press Tab, press number 3, and what I need to do is cut this up so that we've sort of got a rectangle shape that can tile across like wallpaper, something that can just repeat over and over again without us noticing where the gaps are or where the seams are. So I just need to make a couple of changes to this before I can make that square. What I'm going to do is go into number 1, into the vertex mode, and I believe I need to cut with the knife tool. Should be, let's just get this right, here to here. It should snap to the vertexes. hit enter to engage the cut, left click, and enter. And then I'm going to do the same thing down here. Left click, enter, left click, enter. Now if I get out of the knife tool and press 3 to go into face select, I'll show you the shape that I'm trying to make here, and hopefully I've cut these faces up correctly. Okay. We're looking for a rectangular shape with our hexagonal pattern in the middle. Hopefully we've got it right. Okay, that's the one. Okay, so you can see there's one hexagon in the middle, and then there's this extruding triangle here and this intruding triangle here, so that if we duplicate these vertically, this shape will fit in this shape. Okay, I'll just grab all the remaining offcuts, hit X, delete the faces, go out of edit mode, and there we are. That's our basic shape. So the next thing I'm going to do, just so that we can see what we're working with, go back into edit mode, tab first, and grab the faces of our hexagon, and I'm going to hit extrude on the Z axis, bring them up, and I'll hit Z to go back into solid mode, Z, and then click over here. And that's the basic structure of our library. That's our first sort of hexagonal chamber. Okay, so now we have to use modifiers again to multiply all of these chambers onto a grid and then wrap them around that torus shape. So first of all, the first array modifier is pretty simple. It's just going to duplicate it along the x-axis. The second one, duplicating it along the y-axis, a little bit more complicated. If I go into top-down again, you can see that we've got, I'm going to Y-frame, Z, click across. You can see that we've got a little bit of a problem, that there's this gap that we need to fill. So to fill that gap, you can work it out yourself by just changing this number. Let's make it a little bit smaller to 0.9. That's taking it too far. What if I put 0.95? Not far enough. 0.97. Little bit too far. So it's going to be somewhere between 0.97 and what's 0.96? Too far again. So somewhere between 0.97 and 0.96. I think I wrote this down before. I think I came up with a number of 0.967743. Now, look, that was just me stuffing around for 10 minutes to find that number that was very, very close. Mathematically, we could calculate that to work out exactly what it will be, but for our purposes, I think, I'm just trying to show you a quick way to make this, so that number I think is close enough, and we can't see any seams between the repeating shapes. So if I add this, put this count up to 5, you can see we've now got a perfectly repeating honeycomb sort of lattice. So the next thing we have to do is wrap it around this donut shape. And now luckily a donut is really just two curves rotated around each other, two circles. And I'll show you what I mean. So now I'm going to add Shift A curve this time, and it's going to be a NURBS circle. NURBS circle is here. I'll scale that up a bit. And now I'm going to click on my lattice here. I should rename it actually. Let's call it library monomer. Oh, and let's save our file. That's a very good idea. File, save as. Let's call it class 3 Borges demonstration. That'll do. Okay. Rightio, so what was next? Okay, so now we have to wrap the lattice around the curve. So with the lattice selected, I'm going to add a curve modifier. So straight away you'll see nothing's happened because I need to add the curve as the reference here to the object. So I'll grab this little eye picker and just click on the curve, So now it's rotating around the curve, but it's not rotating the way we want it to. What we actually want is to change the deformation axis to, there we go, to Y. So now that it's going around the outside of the curve here, and if I up my count on one of my modifiers, I'm not sure which one, let's just test. Nope, not this one, it will be this one. You'll see that we're getting our cylinder of hexagons. Now, to get this count exactly right, there's two ways to do it. One will be, to employ your mathematics of calculating radii using pi and circumferences. But look, I'm just going to get it approximately right again. If you want to work out the mathematical formula and share that, that will be great. But I'm just, keeping things a little bit simple here. So, whoops, I just updated the wrong number here. That's our wrong modifier. I'll just collapse those modifiers so I don't do that again. What we wanted to do was to get these to join up. There's two ways to do it. I could adjust the scale of my library monomer. If I click on it and press S, that will adjust the scale. But actually, I'm going to adjust the scale of my curve because when we do the same thing on the other curve, we don't want to be changing the scale of our monomer. So I'm just going to get nice and close to that gap, grab the curve, hit S, and just move it in until it fits pretty nicely. Okay, that looks pretty good to me. Yep. Let's just go into edit mode on the, I'll go into wireframe mode and just see. There's nothing that obvious I can see. Okay, great. So let's just leave it like that. Let's keep things simple to start. So the next thing I'll do is I'm going to add a second curve, which will be another circle. Oh no, sorry. Let's delete that. What I meant to add was a NURBS circle, and I'll scale it up again. But this time I'm going to need to rotate it on the y-axis, RY90. Okay, and that's because we need to project our lattice going around this curve to complete that donut torus shape. So it's the exact same process again. I'll add a modifier, add a curve. I'll just use the eyedropper to grab the curve, and beautiful. We can see that already we're on the correct axis here. The x-axis was correct, and we just want to increase the count so that our lattice wraps around the circle, completing the torus shape. So that will probably be, nope, not this one, the top array. And if we just add this number up, we can make this number go up more quickly by just putting our mouse in the middle of this bar and turning it into a slider. And I'm just going to do the same thing that I did last time. I'll just actually change the scale of the circle to make sure this fit is nice and close. So I'll grab the circle here in my scene collection, NURBS circle 001, and I'll just move my mouse away from the circle. If you're using a scale command, often if you move your mouse away from the center of the object, it gives you more fine control over the scale operation. So see this dotted line on my screen? The longer that dotted line, the more control you get. So that's why I don't have my mouse here when I press scale, because I have a little bit less control. If my mouse is further away, it gives me more fine control. So just get that fit nice and close, and that looks perfect to me, or almost perfect. Pretty good. Okay, so this is the first part of the tutorial really done now. We've got our hexagonal mesh wrapped around the torus. So essentially we have that 2.5 dimensional version of the library that Borges was describing. Now if you want to take this further, I'm just going to go back into my modifiers, and I want to untick these boxes here. These boxes say display modifier in edit mode, and if I turn these off, you'll see that now when I press tab, I go all the way back to the first sort of monomer, the first basic form of our library. So if you wanted to remodel this, add in doors, etc., everything you add to this monomer will then be added to the larger torus. I might make a second tutorial showing a few techniques for this. I'll just do a couple of basic changes now so that you see what I mean. And I'll show you one challenge that will be for you to work out. If I select these two faces here and I extrude, scale, let's say 0.8 again, and then extrude on the z-axis and bring them down, I'll press tab again. And now you can see that, zoom out a bit, now you can see that we have a second layer, a second level, second potential level in our library, but it's only on, it's not on every single hexagon. And the reason for that is that if I go back to our monomer, we also really need to do it here as well. So that's where things will get a little bit more complex, and I might make a second video for some of you guys to work that out. I'll show you a couple more things before I finish this video. Go back into edit mode. What if I wanted to make a door? Well, there's a few ways to do it. Our edge loops here might not be working perfectly, but perhaps I could do something like I could make a loop cut here and here. Actually, no, I won't make that loop cut. I disagree with that decision. What if I grab these faces instead? This might be an even more simple way around it. I'll grab this face and look around to the other side. You know, first of all, I'm just going to extrude, scale, I don't know, 0.5. That could be a door. And then same here, extrude, scale, 0.5. And if I delete this face, X, delete, looks like we've got another face in here as well. Okay, that's interesting. X, delete. So it looks like there's some extra faces in this model that have come from, perhaps we didn't merge when we first did our lattice. Maybe some things weren't merged. So when it comes to editing, we might change this process a little bit. But let's just get this basic thing working here. So I'm just going to fill these edges in here. Fill this edge in here and just adjust my viewport. Remember to adjust the viewport, when I'm rotating the viewport, I'm pressing the middle mouse button, and when I'm moving the viewport up and down, I'm holding down Shift and pressing the middle mouse button. So I'll just grab these edges and I'll fill again. So if that was a door, you know, maybe it will be a bit lower. So I'll go into 3 for face select, 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'll hit G and Z and just bring that down a bit. I'll leave a nice little step to step over the doorway, and I'll press tab to get out of edit mode, and that means there should be, okay, so now we've got that little door going between a whole bunch of our hexagons. Now, there's a few things that I've deliberately done here to be a bit kinder to your computer, is that I've made the hexagons a little bit bigger than they need to be, simply, which is why when we look in the center of the torus, you know, they're quite distorted. And that's simply because when I made this image here, I was working on a more powerful computer, and once we get to extremely high polygon counts like this, your computer will start slowing down. So really, I think with having slightly larger hexagons here, or you can make them even larger again, it will give us a bit more flexibility when it comes to making our own alterations, putting some detail in the library, and then allowing it to duplicate like this. So in fact, to make this again, you could make the hexagons even bigger if you want to add more detail. But the great thing about modeling this way is that we can change all this as we go. You know, we could make this a whole lot larger and change the size of our circles, and then simply change the numbers in our arrays until the torus is all seamless once again. Okay, so that's the end of this video. I hope that is enough to get you started with making this sort of beeswax honeycomb lattice, and exploring some of the principles of repetition and iteration that we looked at philosophically in the lecture about Jorge Luis Borges' Library of Babel this week. Okay, I'll see you guys in class very soon. Thanks a lot. Bye bye.